You must have done something pretty fine to get as high as you are, Mr. Brown. I'm looking into that. I'm going to open you up and I'm going to operate. I hate to think of what I'll find.
But I tell you, Joe, a righteous man.
The Big Combo from 1955 was an edgy crime film directed by Joseph Lewis with cinematography by the legendary John Alton. The story is that hard-boiled police lieutenant Leonard Diamond, played by actor Cornell Wilde, is on a mission to bring down the evil gangster Mr. Brown, played here by Richard Conte, while having an interest in Brown's girlfriend, the mysterious and lovely Suzanne, played by actress Jean Wallace. You know, this one was epic. It's a type of crime film that I love discovering from this era. So I'll give an overview of the story and then offer some closing thoughts and analysis. Well, the credits roll, and man, listen to that David Raxon music. Wow, it's good. So the film gets rolling, and we're in the city, and we see lovely actress Jean Wallace playing the character of Susan, and she's on the run, and she's apprehended by some goons who tell her that Mr. Brown doesn't want her to leave. Now she nervously apologizes and says she won't run away again. The thugs are played here by Lee Van Cleef and Earl Holliman. They play the characters Fanty and Mingo. I love it. So we cut over to the police station as Captain Peterson, actor Robert Middleton, arrives. He goes in and he talks with Lieutenant Diamond, who's played here by Cornell Wilde. Captain tells Diamond that he needs to cool it with all of this spending, that he's been putting a lot of money into trying to bring down this Mr. Brown character. Diamond points out that Brown isn't just a man, but he's an organization. But the captain points out that they have nothing on him, and they just can't touch him. He also asks why there's a tail on this Susan Lowell character, and Diamond explains that it's because she's Brown's girl. Captain suggests that maybe Diamond has fallen for her, and maybe he's taken things a little too far. And yeah, early in the film, we can see that this Lieutenant Diamond, he's been really working hard on this case for a long time maybe. Possibly he's gone a little bit too far with this investigation. Well, we cut to a fancy club, and Susan is there. She's having dinner with those two thug characters when she meets with an old friend, Mr. Audubon, played by Roy Gordon, and she asks to dance with him. Well, the thugs caution her not to try to run away again. But while she's dancing, she collapses, telling Mr. Audubon that she had overdosed on pills. So we cut over to Mr. Brown. He's played here just wonderfully by a very cold and sinister Richard Conte. And he's giving a motivational speech, you could say, to a boxer about how to succeed in life.
What is it, Benny? What makes the difference? Hate. Hate is the word, Benny. Hate the man who tries to beat you. Kill him, Benny, kill him! Hate him till you see red and you come out winning the big money. And the girls will come tumbling after. You'll have to shut off your phone and lock the door to get a night's rest. Get on your feet, Benny.
What'd you do that for, Mr. Brown?
You should have hit me back. You haven't got the hate. Tear up Benny's contract. He's no good to me anymore.
Now with him is Brian Donlevy as the character Joe McClure, who used to be his crime boss, and now Mr. Brown is in charge. So Mr. Brown gets the word that Susan apparently is in the hospital, so he rushes over to see her. Now Diamond is still at work when his partner arrives and gives him the news that Susan is in the hospital, so he heads over as well. Now I love the interaction as Diamond arrives and Mr. Brown is there, but Brown won't speak directly to the lieutenant, but just sort of speaks to him through the character McClure. Very cold stuff. I love it. So, I mean, we can see right from the beginning, Mr. Brown wants to destroy Lieutenant Diamond, and the lieutenant wants to bring down Brown. They hate each other, and the hate between these two is really something to watch in this film. But anyhow, it's all interrupted as Susan is wheeled past them, and in a daze, she whispers the name Alicia. Diamond speaks with Susan privately, trying to find out who Alicia was or what the name means, but Susan won't say and tells him to leave. Now, Diamond's partner Sam arrives, played by actor Jay Adler, tells him that Mr. Brown has ordered a habeas corpus on Susan. So later, Lieutenant Diamond brings Mr. Brown in for a lie detector test. Now, they don't have any charges formally against him, so he's pretty much just volunteering to do this. Now, he's all smug as they fire off words until they get to the name Alicia, and his readings spike. Now, Mr. Brown has had enough at this point, and he leaves. Now later, the captain comes back and tells Diamond that the case is closed. He needs to drop it. I love it because it reminds me of kind of the cliche that you see in maybe more of the modern police detective stories of, the cigar-chomping police chief who's like, "You've gone too far with this case. You need to just drop it," But no, Diamond's not going to give up just yet. And his partner, Sam, seems sympathetic. Tells him, you need to go home, get some rest. But Diamond leaves and instead goes to meet with the character Rita, played by lovely actress Helene Stanton. Now, she's a burlesque dancer, and they head home together, and they have sort of what felt like a bland relationship. And she clearly knows that he is troubled by another woman. Now, speaking of troubled relationships, we cut over to Mr. Brown, who comes home to Susan. She really loathes this guy. She's there listening to music and just seems repulsed by him. But she is just under his control and just cannot escape from him. Now back over to Diamond, he gets a call from Rita and visits her backstage. Turns out that she has heard rumors and rumblings that there is a hit out for him, and he needs to get out of town. But, he's the tough detective. He's not going to leave town. So she kisses him goodbye, he leaves, and wouldn't you know it, he gets clobbered by Fanti and Mingo. So we see him all tied up in this basement in the shadows, and McClure is slapping him around for a while, wanting to know, what he's up to, why he was brought in. Now, Mr. Brown comes in. He tells off McClure for having not learned about technique, and then, taking McClure's hearing aid out of his ear, he sticks it into Diamond's ear and proceeds to ask questions very loudly of the lieutenant. This is a very uncomfortable torture scene to watch.
Can you hear me, Lieutenant? Just want to ask you one question and then you can go. What are you looking for? Maybe I can help you. What about Alicia? What's your information? Arresting all my friends. Phony warrants. What's behind it? Mingo, try it. Ah!
It's interesting to watch the scene that even McClure from the shadows seems a little bit troubled watching this happen. So they torture him by playing this loud music and yelling at him, and then they force him to drink this alcohol and then drop him off outside of the captain's apartment. So the captain discovers him thinking, he just went out drinking, but then realizes, no, this is something a little more sinister. So Diamond sobers up, with the captain's help, and, this captain realizes he was tortured and that they got away with it, basically. And they talk, and Peterson remembers how 7 years earlier, this Ralph Bettini character was the right-hand man of Grazzi, the former leader of Brown's organization. Now Grazzi had left New York for Sicily, and Bettini went into hiding. So he goes out looking, and he's able to find this Ralph Bettini character. It's played here by actor Ted DeCorsia, who I've seen in a number of old films before, like The Man in the Dark with Edmund O'Brien. He looks a little bit older here. That's one of the things I've noticed. This film came out in 1955. I usually stick to films, early, mid, late 1940s. So I'm seeing familiar faces in this film that maybe look a little bit older, you know? So anyhow, back to the story. Bettini thinks that Diamond is there to kill him. But the lieutenant tells him no, and brings him up to speed on what's going on and that he's a detective and so on. Bettini tells him how there was a trip when Mr. Brown was arguing with Alicia, who was his wife, and how she was turning into an alcoholic and becoming very rude and belligerent, and she disappeared, and Bettini suspected that Brown had killed her, and now he himself is in hiding, fearing for his life. So Bettini gives Diamond a lead to this character Nils Dreyer, who runs an antique shop. Now, Dreyer is played here by actor John Hoyt. I've seen him in a number of films before, but I know him more fondly as the original Doctor from the Star Trek pilot. So, kind of cool to see him again. Diamond questions him, but he refuses to give any information about Brown. He seems overly confident in his ability to take care of himself. We know better in crime films. Overconfidence never works out well, so sure enough, Diamond leaves. Soon the phone rings, and Dreyer answers it, but just hears the disconnect. So Dreyer gets his gun, steps out, but soon he is gunned down by McClure. So a little bit later, Mr. Brown is telling off McClure, really just humiliating him to his face, that he did not need to shoot Dreyer, that he's lost his edge, he doesn't know what he's doing. More on this at the end of the review, but, you really start to kind of feel for the guy. Nobody wants a boss like Mr. Brown.
Give me your gun, Joe. Come on. See what I mean, Joe? 2 seconds ago, you had this gun in your hand. We're all alone here. The thought of using it flashed through your mind. But you couldn't. Yet you didn't hesitate to use it on Dreyer. Why? Because he was a little man, Joe. Like you, a little man. You got a soft job and good pay. Stop thinking about what might have been. And who knows? You may live to die in bed. That's all, Joe.
So the next day, the detectives search Dreyer's safe deposit box, and they find the negative of a photograph of this character, Alicia, with Brown and Grazzi, as well as a note about a November 1946 log entry of a boat. Now, Diamond rushes over to Dreyer's shop to try to find this log book, but it's too late. Brown has already obtained legal ownership of the place, and he's burned the log book. And there's just nothing they can do. And wow, what a great transition. Watch this. I could just rant and rave about the beautiful direction and cinematography of this film, but let's continue with this summary here. So Lieutenant Diamond goes to plead with Susan, trying to convince her that this Mr. Brown is bad news, but she just wants him to leave. So he goes and leaves her with a picture of Alicia, and later she confronts Brown about it, but he tells her that she was just a drunk and their marriage apparently was just a big failure, and that she went on and was living at Grazzi's house and so on. So he tries to cover for who she was, but Susan kind of remains dubious of this whole situation. Now, Brown has had enough, and he gives the order for a hit on Lieutenant Diamond. So he sends Fanti and Mingo off to his apartment. They arrive, they kick the door open, and just blast their guns. But Diamond isn't there. But from the shadow, we see Rita's arm drop limp, a cigarette falling to the ground. Very artsy scene, but they've made a bad mistake here. The police all arrive, the investigators are there, and Diamond makes this discovery, and of course he's furious. So his focus now is not so much about justice with Mr. Brown. It's about revenge. And you think he's almost going to lose it, but then he breaks down, and you just see him crying, realizing at this point how poorly all along he has treated Rita, and his partner is sympathetic with him. So later, Susan arrives at the police station with a new picture of Alicia that Brown had given her, and the police examine it. Now, the police technicians are able to figure out that it was taken at an upstate sanitarium. So Lieutenant Diamond goes and finds this place, and he meets with Alicia. Now, she's played here by actress Helen Walker. Actually caught her not long ago in the film Impact from 1949. Interesting that Brian Donlevy was in that film as well. It's actually an excellent crime film. I need to rewatch that sometime. But anyhow, Alicia is clearly having a rough time being in a sanitarium and all. And she claims that she does not know Mr. Brown, but she seems to get plenty upset when Diamond tells her about his crimes. Now, McClure heads to see Mingo and Fanti and tells them that Mr. Brown had killed Grazzi. And he tries to convince them, kind of like a coup here, that they should kill Brown and that he can be their new leader. So the guys seem like they might go along with this. He then drives Mr. Brown to a private airport, and the plan is that Fanti and Mingo are supposed to kill Mr. Brown. But instead, they turn and they aim at McClure. Ah, well, poor guy. He begs for his life, and then Mr. Brown, cold as ice, does him a favor.
I feel sorry for you, Joe. So I'm going to do you a favor. You won't hear the bullets.
And it's really an interesting scene because the sound goes out. We don't hear it either. So, man, that scene was cold to watch. Well, back at the police station, Alicia still refuses to talk, even when Susan states that she will be testifying against Mr. Brown. Susan just breaks down crying, confessing to being Mr. Brown's girl for the last 4 years and being just unable to leave. Lieutenant Diamond tries to get Alicia to testify, and he shows her pictures of Rita's body, and Alicia finally agrees that she will testify. But as she leaves, she sees Mr. Brown's attorney waiting with that habeas corpus, and Mr. Brown is there as well with that creepy face, and she just sees him and freaks out and goes into shock. You know, Mr. Brown always seems to be a step ahead of these police. But when McClure's body is found, Diamond realizes that Brown might be getting a little bit sloppy, and maybe this is something they can use to finally move in on him. Now, Mingo and Fanti, they are in hiding because, you know, the police are starting to move in a little more. And then Mr. Brown shows up, brings them a box with some food or money. Or is it?
Thought you'd never come. Take it easy, boys. Look, it's now 4 in the afternoon. At 5:30 tomorrow morning, the cops change shifts in the alley. I'll come for you then.
You get us a car?
Everything's arranged. Just keep your heads and wait. I brought you some food.
Tell the man to go crazy.
You've both been good boys. There's enough money here to take care of you for a long time. Divide it even, and don't fight over it.
How much you think?
Mr. Brown's a generous man.
I'll tell you after I count.
Here, give it here.
Man, this guy has so many tricks up his sleeve. Then we cut to Mr. Brown. He's just casually digging into his lobster for dinner. You know, we're getting near the end of the film, and I don't want to give any more away. You got to see the ending for yourself. Can this guy continue to stay a step ahead, or can Lieutenant Diamond ever bring him down? Well, this whole film is just the cat and mouse game. It just keeps you guessing, and I can't give away that amazing ending. But you need to see this one for yourself. So some closing thoughts. What can I say? This one was just fantastic. It's a crime film that had all of those edgy noir elements that I just love in these old films. You know, a big part of why I do my YouTube channel is just because I love to go exploring. like digging for treasure. And every now and then, I'll find a gem like this one. It's just a fantastic movie. And it's in the public domain, so you can go and easily check it out. I think you can go to like the Wikipedia page for this film, and there's a link to the film right there. It's also on Prime. It's easy to find. The Big Combo came out in 1955. It was directed by Joseph H. Lewis and features more of that amazing, stark, black and white cinematography by John Alton. It's thematically heavy for a crime film. Maybe it's because, as I mentioned earlier, we're creeping into the 1950s more. 1955 film. I usually keep it to the 1940s, the films I review on this channel, but this one was a little more stark, a little more bleak, and I noticed there's more gray to the morality. It is good versus evil, of course, but it's a lieutenant who's not exactly the shining beacon of morality here. It's not surprising to read that this film apparently ran into trouble with Hollywood's censorship board, which went ahead and removed a few scenes from the final release version due to the violence. The original working title of the film was The Hoodlum, and it was based on a story by screenwriter and producer Philip Yordan. Now, apparently, Jack Palance was originally cast to play Mr. Brown, and they decided against him and instead went with Richard Conte. It's interesting, and maybe it's just me, but I thought that Richard Conte actually bore a resemblance to Jack Palance. So it would have been interesting to see if he had taken the role. Believe it or not. Now, I really have to comment on Cornell Wilde's role here. Now, Cornell Wilde, it's been a while, but I've seen him in other films before, like Roadhouse. The one from 1948, not the other one. And in this film, he plays this Lieutenant Diamond. It's a great name choice, Diamond, for this flawed protagonist. Now, I watch a film like this, and I love the theme of the driven hero. One that's maybe pushing himself too hard, almost to the point of obsession, where his supervisor and even his partner are both maybe getting a little frustrated and annoyed at how hard he's just pushing everything in just his singular focus on bringing down this crime lord, Mr. Brown. And, we see this hero suffering under the psychological strain of his profession, of too many late nights, that hopelessness of failing time and time again to stop this criminal who always stays a step ahead of him. I love it. When he's not living in his office, he's in a ratty old apartment, and he has a broken relationship with a burlesque dancer, one he admittedly treats like garbage. So he's got no happy home life, wife and kids, or anything like that. He's just kind of living his life as this detective, driven to the sole purpose of doing his job and bringing down Mr. Brown. Now, of course, Richard Conte as his nemesis, Mr. Brown, was fantastic as that arrogant and extremely shrewd criminal who just sort of laughs as he slips away time and again, knowing he can't be arrested, can't get caught, knowing he hasn't done anything wrong. He's always doing and saying just the right things. He's got his lawyer at the ready, and they just can't catch him. And all this does is continue to infuriate Diamond and fuels his obsession with him. The cat and mouse of this film is just so good when the two characters are equally paired. The detective is driven and relentless. He's determined to bring down this bad guy, regardless of the toll on himself and others. And the crime lord is always just step ahead, smug look on his face. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Some of my favorite films are the ones with well-developed heroes and villains, not two-dimensional ones, but living, thinking, scheming ones, paired equally against one another. Whenever I see a great film like this, with that cat and mouse formula, it reminds me of the film Heat from 1995, one of my favorite crime films ever, with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. It's a similar scenario, maybe not quite as dark in the movie Heat. De Niro plays a very astute criminal who always stays a step ahead of the law and avoids capture. And Al Pacino, meanwhile, plays the dedicated detective who wants to bring him down. The difference with Heat, and I've been thinking about it because I watched this again recently, is that if you watch the film, and you can watch it especially for that diner scene, when De Niro and Pacino sit down together and they talk, it's just a casual conversation with all the cards on the table. And we see there's almost a mutual respect that they have for one another. Almost like they enjoy what they do. They both know they have a job to do. And they both have no qualms with getting to the point where they have to kill one another if it comes down to it. And yet both seem to have a genuine admiration for each other. So I watch a film like Heat, and then I compare it to this one. And it's a slightly different spin, admittedly, because with the big combo, Lieutenant Diamond, as the protagonist, he seems to have a simmering hatred of his opponent. His partner Joe at one point has to restrain him from beating up Mr. Brown as he verbally provokes him. So again, that's something I just love in these crime films. Give me a good hero and a good villain, pair them against each other, and let's see what happens as we watch the film. I also thought Jean Wallace did an amazing job here as this character who is just hopelessly trapped in this doomed and terrible relationship with Mr. Brown, with really no way out. Her acts of defiance of, wearing outfits that he didn't approve of and so on, it all made no difference. He was just this controlling monster, and she saw no way out. And, I really admired how you could empathize with her sense of helplessness to her character. It was interesting, I read that, a side note, she was on her third marriage at this point, and it was to the star of the film, actor Cornell Wilde. So they were married in real life. Also, I have to make mention of the fact that Richard Conte, probably remember him from a number of films, but one of his more memorable performances was in the movie The Godfather from 1972. He was considerably older at that point. He played Don Barzini. And I guess at one point they even considered him for the title role as Don Vito Corleone, but that went to Marlon Brando, of course. Now, other than the main drive of the film, of the protagonist and the villain, one thing I admired about this film was the subplot of Brian Donlevy's character, this Joe McClure, the aging criminal. He's got the hearing aid in. He was once the boss running the show, and now he's just a man growing old. He's still involved in the crime, but he's no longer calling the shots. He actually blows his one shot at taking over, actually, in the film. Mr. Brown treats him terribly through the film, largely in this condescending, humiliating way. And you really find yourself feeling sorry for his character. Mr. Brown is very much with the, you've lost your edge, you're old, give me your gun, you can't cut it anymore. Things like this make you just truly despise the Mr. Brown character all the more. It's not just Diamond who wants him down. It's you see how rotten he treats the woman in his life, how terribly he treats the guys he works with, like this Joe McClure character. You just want to see Mr. Brown brought down so bad in this film. And, obviously I have to comment on the artistry of this film visually. Cinematographer John Alton's usage of black and white, once again, it's sublime. Every time I see a film with his work, it's like an inkwell of heavy, heavy shadow with bleak sources of light, often just unexpected sources creeping in from lamps or hazy, foggy spotlights. Visually, his films are a treat, and they just accent the despair and hopelessness of the hero, drowning him in the shadows. The Big Combo was released in 1955. It is a brutal, often bleak crime film that features so many fantastic performances by Cornell Wilde, Richard Conte, Jean Wallace, Brian Donlevy, and more than a few familiar faces along the way. It was directed by Joseph Lewis, and again, gorgeous cinematography by John Alton. It just makes for a film that's just a visual treat to watch. This is one of the best crime films I've ever seen, and it's definitely one worth checking out.